The diplomatic vessel Harmony's Edge drifted through the asteroid field like a metal leaf caught in a cosmic storm. Ambassador Chen Wei stood at the observation deck, watching the massive chunks of rock tumble past their reinforced windows. Somewhere in this maze of stone and ice lay the most important discovery in human history, and the most dangerous. Ambassador, we're receiving another transmission from the Drachmarie fleet. Communications Officer Rodriguez called from her station. They're demanding we turn back immediately. Chen rubbed his temples. 3 months of negotiations had led to this moment. The Drachmarie Empire controlled half the known galaxy, their dragon-like species feared across 1,000 worlds. No species had ever successfully established peaceful contact with them. Most who tried ended up as cautionary tales whispered in space stations across the outer rim. Tell them we're here under the agreed protocols, Chen replied. We have permission to retrieve our people. The rescue mission had started as a routine survey expedition. The exploration ship New Horizons had discovered an uncharted world rich in rare minerals. What they didn't know was that the planet belonged to the Drachmarie. Specifically, it served as a protected nesting ground for their young. The survey team had been captured 3 weeks ago. Diplomatic channels suggested they were still alive, held somewhere on the planet's surface. The Drachmarie had agreed to return them, but only if human representatives came personally to collect them. It was either a gesture of respect or an elaborate trap. Chen's 6-year-old daughter Maya pressed her face against the observation window, her breath fogging the glass. She traced patterns in the condensation with her small finger. Daddy, are we there yet? She asked, her voice carrying that particular brand of patience only children possessed. Chen smiled despite his anxiety. Bringing Maya on this mission had been his wife's idea. Dr. Sarah Chen, the expedition's chief xenobiologist, believed that children often saw things adults missed. Plus, Maya had been asking about her father's work for months. Sarah thought the trip might help their daughter understand why Daddy was away so much. Almost, sweetheart, Chen said. Remember what Mommy told you about being very quiet and polite when we meet the dragon people? Maya nodded solemnly. They're not really dragons, though. Mommy said they just look like dragons, but they're really smart people who live in space. That's right. They're very different from us, but they think and feel just like we do. The ship shuddered as they passed through the planet's upper atmosphere. Through the viewports, Chen could see a world of purple skies and silver mountains. Strange crystalline formations jutted from the ground like frozen lightning. In the distance, massive structures rose from the landscape, Drachmarie cities that looked more like elaborate sculptures than buildings. Dr. Sarah Chen joined them at the window, her tablet displaying real-time atmospheric readings. The air is breathable, she said. Oxygen levels are actually higher than Earth normal. Temperature is cool but comfortable. And, Chen. She paused, touching his arm. The bio readings are incredible. This isn't just a planet, it's a carefully maintained ecosystem. Every plant, every animal, everything is balanced perfectly. The landing site was a circular clearing surrounded by tall, silver trees that chimed softly in the wind. As soon as the ship touched down, they could see the delegation waiting for them. A dozen Drachmarie stood in formation, their scales gleaming in the purple sunlight. Chen had seen pictures, but nothing had prepared him for meeting them in person. The Drachmarie were magnificent and terrifying in equal measure. They stood 8 feet tall on powerful hind legs, their bodies covered in scales that shifted color with their emotions. Wings folded against their backs, and their elongated heads featured intelligent eyes and rows of gleaming teeth. The leader stepped forward as the human delegation emerged from their ship. His scales were deep gold with silver highlights, and he wore ceremonial armor that looked ancient and powerful. I am War Leader Kethril of the Seventh Flame, he announced, his voice carrying the rumble of distant thunder. You are the humans who come for your lost ones? Chen bowed in the manner his cultural advisors had taught him. I am Ambassador Chen Wei. This is my wife, Dr. Sarah Chen, our daughter Maya, and our security chief, Major Torres. We are grateful for your agreement to return our people. Kethril's eyes, deep amber with flecks of gold, fixed on Maya with obvious curiosity. You bring a youngling to this place? Children are precious to us, Chen explained. We believe they help us see truth more clearly. The war leader's head tilted, a gesture that somehow conveyed both confusion and interest. Strange. Among the Drachmarie, younglings are kept safe until they can defend themselves. Your species is unusual. Maya had been staring at the assembled drachmae with wide eyes. Now she tugged on her father's hand. "Daddy," she whispered loudly, "they're really pretty. Like the pictures in my fairy tale books, but real." Several of the drachmae shifted their stance, scales flickering with what the human cultural database identified as surprise. Kethral looked down at Maya with what might have been amusement. "The youngling has strange eyes," he observed. "What does she see that makes her speak so?" Sarah knelt beside Maya. "What do you think about them, sweetheart?" "They look serious, but not mean," Maya said thoughtfully. "Like when Grandpa is thinking really hard about something important. And their scales are like jewels. I bet they tell stories with the colors." This observation caused a visible stir among the drachmae. Kethral's scales shifted to a pattern Chen had never seen before, spirals of gold and silver that seemed to pulse with inner light. "The youngling sees scale speech," Kethral said, his voice carrying a note of wonder. "How is this possible? No outsider has ever." He trailed off, then made a gesture that brought one of his companions forward. This drachmae was smaller, with scales of deep emerald green. "Second clutch Varix will guide you to where your people are held. But, first, there is something you must understand." Kethral led them through the silver forest, past streams that glowed with bioluminescent fish. Maya marveled at everything, asking questions in her direct, innocent way. The drachmae who escorted them seemed fascinated by her observations. "Why do the trees make music?" she asked, touching one of the silver trunks. Varix answered before the humans could. "The wind speaks to them. They sing back so the forest knows all is well." "That's smart," Maya said approvingly. "Like how Daddy talks on his phone to make sure everyone's okay at work." They emerged into a vast clearing where the landscape changed dramatically. Here, the ground was covered in what looked like oversized bird nests made of crystalline materials. Each nest was the size of a small building, and they glowed with soft, warm light. "This is the hatching ground," Kethral explained, his voice carrying reverence. "The most sacred place of our people. Your survey team was found here, near the protected nests. They claim they meant no harm, and we believe them. But their presence has caused complications." Chen felt his stomach drop. "What kind of complications?" Varix pointed to one of the nests near the center of the clearing. "That nest was scheduled to hatch 3 days ago. But the youngling inside refuses to emerge. Our greatest healers believe the presence of unknown life forms has frightened it." Sarah pulled out her scanner, checking the readings. "The electromagnetic signatures from our equipment might have interfered with natural hatching patterns," she said. "We use similar biorhythms to monitor bird populations on Earth." "Can we fix it?" Chen asked. Kethral's scales darkened to deep bronze. "Unknown. The youngling grows weaker with each passing hour. If it does not hatch soon." He didn't finish the sentence. Maya had wandered closer to the glowing nest while the adults talked. She stood just outside the ring of crystalline formation, staring at the translucent shell with intense concentration. "Maya, come back here," Sarah called softly. "But, Mommy, I can hear it," Maya said, not moving from her position. "It's scared. Really, really scared." The drachmae delegation froze. Kethral stepped forward, his voice urgent. "What does the youngling mean? What does she hear?" Maya turned to look at him, her 6-year-old face serious and thoughtful. "There's a baby dragon in there, and it thinks something bad is going to happen if it comes out. It's waiting for its mommy to say it's safe." The silence that followed stretched for long seconds. Then, Kethral made a sound that was part growl, part sigh. "The hatchling's parents died in a mining accident 2 months ago. It should have hatched under the care of adoptive clutchmates, but now it's an orphan," Sarah breathed, understanding immediately. "And it can sense that something is different about its environment. Without the proper biochemical signals from its parents, it's staying in the shell." "Can we help?" Chen asked. Varix looked at Kethral, who considered carefully before answering. "Perhaps. But it would require the youngling to approach the nest. Hatchlings respond to juvenile communication patterns more readily than adult ones. However, if the hatchling emerges incorrectly, or if it bonds with the wrong individual." "What happens if it bonds with the wrong individual?" Sarah asked, though her expression suggested she already suspected the answer. Drachmarie young form permanent psychological bonds with the first being they see upon hatching, Kethril explained. It becomes their guide for understanding the world. If a hatchling bonds with someone who cannot provide proper guidance, it could be dangerous, Chen finished. Not dangerous, Varix corrected. Tragic. The hatchling would never develop properly. It would remain confused and dependent for its entire life. Maya was still standing by the nest, now with her small hand pressed against the crystal shell. I can feel it moving, she announced. It wants to come out, but it's too scared. Chen looked at his wife, seeing his own internal struggle reflected in her eyes. They were being asked to let their 6-year-old daughter approach an unknown alien creature that was potentially dangerous. But they were also being given the chance to save a life and possibly forge a historic bond between species. Sarah made the decision. Maya, if you want to help the baby dragon, you need to listen very carefully to what the grown-up dragons tell you to do. Can you do that? Maya nodded solemnly. I promise, Mommy. Kethril approached slowly, his scales shifting to soft patterns of blue and silver, what their briefings had identified as calming colors. Little human, what you are offering to do is very brave. But, you must understand, if the hatchling bonds with you, you will be responsible for its well-being for many years. Are you prepared for such a commitment? Maya considered this with the gravity only a child could bring to a serious question. Will someone teach me how to take care of it properly? If you succeed, we would ensure you learn everything necessary, Varix promised. Then, I want to help, Maya said firmly. Nobody should have to be scared and alone. Kethril nodded slowly, his scales brightening to warm gold. Very well. But, you must follow our guidance exactly. Hatchlings are powerful, even when young. If something goes wrong. We understand the risks, Chen said, though his voice was tight with worry. The Drachmarie formed a protective circle around the nest as Maya approached. Kethril instructed her to place both hands on the shell and speak softly, letting the hatchling hear her voice and feel her presence. Hello, baby dragon, Maya said, her voice carrying the special gentleness children reserved for frightened animals. My name is Maya. I'm here to be your friend, and I promise you're safe now. The response was immediate. The shell began to glow brighter, and they could see movement inside. A small crack appeared near the top. It's working, Varix whispered. The hatchling is responding. Maya continued talking, telling the unborn dragon about Earth, about her toys, about how excited she was to meet it. With each word, the cracks in the shell spread further. Then, with a sound like wind chimes breaking, the shell split open completely. What emerged took everyone's breath away. The hatchling was about the size of a house cat, covered in scales that shimmered between silver and pearl white. Its wings were translucent, like stained glass, and its eyes were the deep blue of Earth's ocean. It looked around the clearing with obvious confusion until its gaze fell on Maya. The moment their eyes met, the hatchling made a sound part chirp, part purr, and stumbled toward her on unsteady legs. Oh, Maya breathed, kneeling down as the tiny dragon reached her. You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. The hatchling pressed its head against Maya's hand and began to purr louder. Its scales shifted to match the blue of her shirt, then back to silver. The bonding is complete, Kethril announced, his voice filled with awe. I have never seen such an immediate connection. Sarah knelt beside her daughter, watching as the hatchling climbed into Maya's lap and curled up like a content kitten. What happens now? Now, said Varix, everything changes. The emergency meeting convened in the Drachmarie Council chambers, a circular room carved from living crystal that amplified sound and projected holographic displays. Maya sat cross-legged on a cushion specially brought for her. The hatchling, who she had named Shimmer, curled in her lap like a scaled puppy. Elder Thyros, the most senior Drachmarie present, stood at the center of the chamber. His scales were ancient bronze touched with silver, and his eyes held the weight of centuries. Around him, a dozen other Drachmarie elders shifted restlessly, their scale patterns displaying the complex emotions running through the group. In 3,000 years of recorded history, Thyros began, his voice carrying the authority of absolute leadership. No hatchling has ever bonded with an alien species. The youngling Maya has accomplished something our greatest scholars deemed impossible. Ambassador Chen fidgeted in his chair, designed for human physiology but still uncomfortably large. His wife Sarah held a tablet displaying real-time biometric readings from both Maya and Shimmer. The bond between them was already measurable: synchronized heartbeats, shared brainwave patterns, and chemical markers that suggested deep emotional connection. What does this mean for our people? Chen asked carefully. And for Maya? Elder Thyros gestured, and a holographic display filled the air above them. It showed genetic sequences, brain scans, and complex diagrams that hurt to look at directly. Drachmary hatchlings are not simply infant versions of adults. They are metamorphic beings who undergo radical transformation based on their early experiences. The bond with a guide determines not only their personality but their physical development. Sarah leaned forward, her scientific curiosity overriding diplomatic caution. You're saying Shimmer will physically change based on Maya's influence? More than change, rumbled war leader Kethril. The hatchling will adapt to match the bonded individual's needs and expectations. In our history, hatchlings have developed specialized abilities based on their bonds with different types of Drachmary adults. Warriors bond with hatchlings who grow large and powerful. Scholars bond with those who develop enhanced mental capabilities. Artists bond with those who can manipulate matter at the molecular level. Maya stroked Shimmer's head while half listening to the adult conversation. The hatchling made soft, musical sounds and nuzzled against her fingers. He likes when I hum, she announced to the room. And he can taste feelings. When I'm happy, he tastes something like strawberries. The assembled Drachmary exchanged glances that carried layers of meaning. Second Clutch Varix spoke up. Hatchlings bonded to our kind cannot taste emotions directly. That ability is reserved for our most advanced telepathic variants. Which means what, exactly? Chen asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer would complicate their lives considerably. Elder Thyros settled onto his haunches, a posture that indicated he was preparing for a long discussion. It means the youngling Maya has triggered developmental pathways in the hatchling that we have never observed. Shimmer may develop abilities that surpass any known Drachmary variant. Cool, Maya said simply, then returned her attention to the hatchling who was now attempting to catch his own tail. Sarah stood and began pacing, her mind racing through implications. From a xenobiological perspective, this could revolutionize our understanding of both species. The bond might be teaching us about human neuroplasticity as much as Drachmary development. But, practically speaking, she turned to face the elders. What are our obligations here? What does Maya need to do to ensure Shimmer develops properly? The answer came from an unexpected source. The chamber's main entrance dilated, and an elderly Drachmary entered with a movement pattern that suggested extreme age and great importance. Her scales were pure white touched with gold, and the other Drachmary immediately shifted to postures of deep respect. I am Ancient Zalera, Keeper of the Deep Memory, she announced. I have come because the cosmic patterns have shifted, and the future hangs on decisions made in this room. Chen had read about the Keepers in his briefing materials. They were Drachmary who had lived for millennia, their memories containing the accumulated wisdom of their entire species. Meeting one was considered the highest honor possible. Ancient Zalera approached Maya slowly, her ancient eyes studying both child and hatchling with intense focus. Youngling of the humans, do you understand the magnitude of what has occurred? Maya looked up from where Shimmer was now chasing a holographic butterfly someone had projected for his entertainment. I helped a scared baby, and now we're friends. Is that bad? Not bad, Zalera said with what might have been a smile. But it is unprecedented. The bond you have formed will affect both your species for generations to come. The hatchling will grow to bridge the gap between human and Drachmary understanding. You will learn things about our kind that no outsider has ever known. But this knowledge comes with responsibility. Sarah sat down beside her daughter. What kind of responsibility? Zalera's scales shifted to deep purple with silver spirals, a pattern that conveyed ancient seriousness. The youngling must remain with us for extended periods to learn proper hatchling care. The hatchling must remain with the youngling to maintain the bond that drives its development. Neither can be separated for more than brief intervals without risking psychological damage to both. Chen felt his heart sink. You're saying Maya has to stay here? Not continuously, Elder Thyros clarified. But for significant portions of each year. The hatchling's critical development period lasts approximately 7 Earth years. During this time, the bond must be maintained through close proximity and shared experiences. Maya had been listening more carefully than anyone realized. Does that mean I get to live with dragons sometimes? She asked, her eyes bright with excitement. If you choose to, Zalera replied. But, understand, youngling, this choice will shape your entire life. You will become something new. Not fully human, not Drachmary, but something between. A bridge between species. Will I still be me? Ancient Zalera's expression grew gentle. You will always be you. But, you will also be more than you ever imagined possible. The meeting continued for hours as details were negotiated. Chen found himself discussing educational protocols with beings who measured time in centuries. Sarah worked with Drachmary scientists to establish monitoring procedures for the unprecedented biological bond. Meanwhile, Maya played with Shimmer, who seemed to grow more intelligent and responsive with each passing hour. During a break in negotiations, Major Torres approached Chen with a concerned expression. Sir, I've been monitoring communications. Word of this development is spreading through both human and Drachmary channels. There are going to be political implications. Chen nodded grimly. He had been expecting this. What kind of implications? Human colonial interests are already asking whether this gives us special access to Drachmary territory. Some Drachmary military leaders are questioning whether humans might use the bond to gain tactical advantages. And there are. Torres paused. There are some groups on both sides who see this as unnatural. Potentially dangerous. Meaning? Meaning there are people who might try to separate Maya and Shimmer by force, claiming it's for the good of species purity. Chen looked across the chamber to where his daughter was teaching Shimmer to stack colored crystals. The hatchling was learning with startling speed, already beginning to understand basic concepts of balance and color matching. Over my dead body, he said quietly. The formal negotiations resumed with ancient Zalera presenting what she called the Compact of Bridging. It was a framework for managing the unprecedented situation, legal protections for both Maya and Shimmer, educational protocols, and guidelines for cultural exchange. The compact acknowledges that the bonded pair will serve as living ambassadors between our species, Zalera explained. They will have special status and protection under both human and Drachmary law. In exchange, they will participate in ongoing cultural and scientific exchange programs designed to deepen understanding between our peoples. Sarah raised her hand. What about Maya's normal childhood? School, friends, family time? The bond does not require constant physical proximity, Elder Thyros assured her. But, the youngling and hatchling must spend substantial time together, especially during critical development phases. We propose a rotating schedule, 3 months each year in Drachmary space, with additional shorter visits as needed. And, education? The youngling will receive instruction in both human and Drachmary knowledge systems, Varric said. She will learn our history, our science, our arts. In return, she will teach us about human perspectives and capabilities. Shen studied the holographic contract floating before him. The legal language was complex, but the core message was clear: his daughter was being offered the chance to become something unique in galactic history. But it would require sacrifices from their entire family. I need to discuss this with my wife, he began, but Maya's voice interrupted him. Daddy, look what Shimmer can do. They turned to see the hatchling hovering 3 feet off the ground, his translucent wings beating rapidly. Maya clapped her hands in delight as Shimmer performed a loop-de-loop in the air before landing gently in her lap. Impossible, breathed War Leader Kethril. Hatchlings cannot fly for at least 6 months after bonding. Their wing muscles are not developed enough. Ancient Zalera leaned forward, her ancient eyes bright with wonder. Unless they bond with someone whose dreams include the concept of flight. The youngling's imagination is literally reshaping the hatchling's physical development. Sarah was frantically taking readings on her scanner. Neural activity is off the charts. Shimmer's brain is developing new pathways in real time. And, Maya. She paused, staring at the display. Maya showing increased activity in areas associated with spatial reasoning and empathic response. The bond works both ways, Zalera confirmed. As the hatchling develops superhuman capabilities, the human youngling develops enhanced understanding of Drachmary thought patterns. Given time, she may develop limited telepathic abilities. Maya was oblivious to the amazement around her. She was busy explaining to Shimmer how airplanes worked, using her hands to demonstrate wing positions and thrust vectors. The hatchling listened with intense concentration, occasionally chirping questions that Maya seemed to understand perfectly. "They're already communicating on a level we can barely comprehend," Sarah murmured. "This isn't just bonding, it's the emergence of a new form of consciousness." Shan made his decision. He looked at his wife, saw his own resolve reflected in her eyes, and turned to address the assembled Drachmary leaders. "We accept the compact," he said formally. "But I want additional protections. If any group, human or Drachmary, attempts to harm or separate them, both our species will respond with full military force." Ancient Zalara's scales brightened to warm gold. "Agreed. The bonded pair will be protected as if they were the offspring of our greatest leaders." Elder Thyros stood, his bronze scales reflecting the crystal chamber's light. "Then, let the compact be sealed. Let this day mark the beginning of a new age of cooperation between our species." As if sensing the importance of the moment, Shimmer spread his small wings and trilled a complex melody. Maya joined in, humming a harmony that seemed to resonate with the crystal walls themselves. The combined sound filled the chamber with music that was neither human nor Drachmary, but something entirely new. "What happens next?" Chen asked. Ancient Zalara gestured toward Maya and Shimmer, who were now trying to teach each other their respective lullabies. "Now we learn what it means to share the galaxy with beings who can bridge the gap between species. Now we discover what wonders are possible when different forms of consciousness truly connect." War leader Kethril approached the human delegation with formal dignity. "The retrieved survey team has been prepared for return to your vessel. But, first, there is a celebration planned in honor of the bonding. Will you join us?" Chen looked at his family, his wife's excited expression, his daughter's contentment with her new companion, and the miraculous sight of a human child and alien hatchling creating something beautiful together. "We'd be honored," he said. 6 months after the bonding ceremony, the research station Harmony Bridge orbited the contested border between human and Drachmary space. The facility represented unprecedented cooperation between species, a joint venture designed to study the developing relationship between Maya-chan and the hatchling Shimmer. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the station's chief behavioral scientist, reviewed her morning reports with growing amazement. Every day brought new discoveries about the nature of interspecies bonding, and every day challenged fundamental assumptions about consciousness and intelligence. Maya had just turned 7, but her cognitive development showed patterns no human child had ever displayed. She demonstrated intuitive understanding of quantum mechanics principles, could predict weather patterns with uncanny accuracy, and spoke 3 languages she had never formally studied, including basic Drachmary, which most human linguists considered impossible to master. Shimmer, meanwhile, had grown from a cat-sized hatchling to a creature the size of a medium dog, with wings that could carry him for hours at a time. His scales had developed new properties, shifting not just color but texture, becoming harder or softer depending on environmental needs. Most remarkably, he had begun to display problem-solving abilities that exceeded even adult Drachmary expectations. Subject Observation Log, Day 173, Dr. Vasquez spoke into a recorder as she watched through the observation deck. Maya and Shimmer are attempting to build a 3-dimensional puzzle that was designed to challenge graduate-level engineering students. They are solving it by methods that don't appear in any textbook. Below in the play area, Maya sat cross-legged while Shimmer perched on her shoulder, both of them studying a complex arrangement of interlocking geometric shapes. They weren't speaking aloud, but their synchronized movements suggested intense communication. "Try the blue piece with the spiral," Maya said finally, pointing to a component near Shimmer's tail. Shimmer chirped and used his claws to delicately manipulate the piece. It slid into place with a soft chime, causing the entire structure to light up with bioluminescent patterns. "They're not just solving the puzzle, Dr. Vasquez observed. They're understanding its underlying mathematical principles instinctively." Ambassador Chen entered the observation area, looking tired but pleased. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind of diplomatic meetings, scientific conferences, and media interviews. The bonding between his daughter and Shimmer had become the most famous interspecies relationship in galactic history. "Any new developments?" he asked, settling into the chair beside Dr. Vasquez. "Several. Shimmer has begun to display what we can only call predictive abilities. He seems to know what Maya needs before she asks for it. Yesterday, he brought her a sweater 5 minutes before she mentioned feeling cold. And Maya? She's developing what we might call empathic intelligence. Not just understanding emotions, but perceiving the complex social dynamics of any group she encounters. She correctly predicted the outcome of 3 separate diplomatic negotiations just by observing the participants for 10 minutes. Chen watched his daughter, trying to balance his pride with his worry. Maya was still recognizably his child. She laughed at silly jokes, loved ice cream, and threw minor tantrums when overtired. But there were moments when she seemed to understand things that escaped highly educated adults. "Are we sure this is healthy for her?" he asked. "Sometimes I feel like she's growing up too fast." Dr. Vasquez pulled up a holographic display showing brain scans. "Neurologically, she's developing normally in all areas that relate to emotional and social development. The enhanced cognitive abilities seem to be additions rather than replacements. She's not losing her childhood, she's gaining new capacities." Their conversation was interrupted by excited voices from the play area. Maya and Shimmer had not only solved the puzzle but discovered that it could be reconfigured into multiple functional forms. They had just transformed it from a geometric challenge into what appeared to be a working communication device. "Maya, what did you just build?" Dr. Vasquez called through the intercom. Maya looked up with the bright smile of a child who had discovered something wonderful. "Shimmer says it can talk to other puzzles like it. We made it into a telephone for toys." As if to demonstrate, the device began emitting soft musical tones. Across the station, similar puzzles in other research areas began responding with harmonious replies. Dr. Vasquez grabbed her tablet and began running scans. "They've accidentally created a quantum entangled communication network," she breathed. "Using children's toys." The implications were staggering. Quantum entanglement communication had been theoretical until human scientists achieved limited success 3 years ago. The technology required massive amounts of energy and sophisticated equipment. Maya and Shimmer had just accomplished the same thing with intuitive understanding and simple manipulation of materials. "We need to document this immediately," Chen said, reaching for his communicator. Before he could make the call, alarms began sounding throughout the station. The voice of Commander Sarah Chen, Maya's mother and the station's military liaison, echoed through the corridors. "All personnel to emergency stations. We have 3 unknown vessels approaching at high speed. Configuration suggests hostile intent." Chen's blood went cold. The research station was supposed to be protected by both human and Drachmarie patrols, but the border region remained politically unstable. Several extremist groups on both sides viewed the bonding project as an abomination that threatened species purity. Dr. Vasquez was already moving toward the secured research areas. "We need to get Maya and Shimmer to the protected quarters immediately." Chen ran toward the play area, but stopped short when he saw his daughter's reaction to the alarms. Instead of showing fear or confusion, Maya was standing perfectly still with Shimmer perched on her shoulder. Both of them were staring at the observation windows as if they could see through the station's hull to the approaching ships. "Maya, we need to go to the safe room now," Chen called. She turned to look at him, and for a moment her 7-year-old face carried an expression of ancient wisdom that made his breath catch. "Daddy, they're scared. The people in the ships. They're scared of what they don't understand." Shimmer trilled softly and launched himself toward the observation windows. His scales shifted to deep purple with silver threads, a pattern Chen had learned indicated intense concentration. "What is he doing?" Dr. Vasquez asked. "I think." Maya paused, tilting her head as if listening to something only she could hear. "I think he's trying to talk to them." On the command deck, Commander Sarah Chen coordinated the station's defensive systems while tracking the approaching vessels. The 3 ships were of unknown design, incorporating both human and Drachmarie technology in configurations that suggested black market origins. "They're not responding to communications," reported Lieutenant Torres from the communications station. "But they're not powering weapons either. They're just approaching." "Keep trying to establish contact," Sarah ordered. "And get me a connection to Ambassador Chen." "Ma'am," Torres interrupted, his voice puzzled. "I'm detecting some kind of broadcast from the approaching ships. It's not standard communication protocols. It's..." He paused, adjusting his instruments. "It sounds almost musical." On the speakers, strange harmonies filled the command deck. The music was unlike anything in human or Drachmarie databases, complex, layered, and somehow deeply emotional. Sarah grabbed her communicator. "Chen, what is your daughter doing?" She and Shimmer have somehow established communication with the approaching vessels, came the reply. Maya says they're responding to Shimmer's attempts at contact. What kind of contact? I'm not sure, but the alarms seem to be distressing them. Maya wants to know if we can turn off the warning systems. Sarah looked at her tactical display. The three ships had stopped their approach and were now maintaining position at what appeared to be a respectful distance. Turn off the alarms, she ordered. But keep all defensive systems ready. The station fell silent except for the continuing musical exchange. In the research area, Maya sat beside the observation windows with Shimmer in her lap. Both of them seemed to be listening intently to sounds no one else could hear. What are they saying? Dr. Vasquez asked softly. They came to see if the stories were true, Maya replied without looking away from the windows. They heard about us from traders and wanted to know if a human and a dragon could really be friends. They're from a place where different species fight all the time. Chen knelt beside his daughter. Are they dangerous? No, Daddy. They're just confused. Shimmer is showing them how we play together and learn from each other. They've never seen anything like that before. Over the next hour, an extraordinary diplomatic situation unfolded. The approaching vessels turned out to be representatives from a distant sector where multiple species had been locked in conflict for decades. They had heard rumors about the human Drachmary bonding project and traveled hundreds of light years to see if peaceful coexistence was possible. Maya and Shimmer became impromptu ambassadors, demonstrating their friendship through the station's external cameras while Shimmer somehow managed to communicate emotional concepts that transcended language barriers. The visiting representatives watched in amazement as a human child and Drachmary hatchling solved problems together, created art collaboratively, and obviously cared deeply for each other's well-being. The youngling and hatchling accomplish more with their friendship than our greatest diplomats achieve with treaties, observed Captain Vexna, leader of the visiting delegation. His species resembled crystal and spiders, but his translated words carried warmth and wonder. Ancient Zalera had arrived on the station via emergency transport, her presence adding gravity to the unexpected diplomatic meeting. The bond demonstrates what becomes possible when different forms of consciousness choose cooperation over conflict, she explained to the assembled representatives. The youngling and hatchling do not merely coexist, they enhance each other. Maya, meanwhile, was showing Shimmer how to use human art supplies while he taught her to shape crystal formations with her mind. Their collaborative creations were things of impossible beauty, sculptures that seemed to capture emotion in physical form. We have spent 3 centuries fighting over resources and territory, admitted Commander Zephyx, whose species resembled mobile plants. Perhaps we have been asking the wrong questions. What do you mean? Ambassador Chen asked. We have asked how to defeat our enemies. Perhaps we should have asked how to understand our neighbors. Dr. Vasquez watched Maya and Shimmer work together on a new project, some kind of communication device that seemed to translate not just words but emotional intentions. The bonding doesn't just create friendship between individuals, she realized. It creates a model for peaceful interaction that other species can adapt. The compact we signed mentioned this possibility, Chen recalled. Maya and Shimmer serving as living examples of cooperation. Ancient Zalera's scales brightened to warm gold. The youngling and hatchling are becoming what we hoped, bridges between not just 2 species, but potentially many. Their bond demonstrates that consciousness itself seeks connection across all barriers. As the day progressed, Maya and Shimmer worked with representatives from 5 different species, teaching them games, sharing stories, and demonstrating that fear of the unknown could be replaced with curiosity and friendship. Daddy, Maya said as the visiting delegations prepared to return to their ships, Shimmer wants to know if we can visit their worlds sometime. He thinks we could help other people learn to be friends too. Chen looked at his remarkable daughter and her extraordinary companion, then at the peaceful fleet of ships that had arrived as potential threats and were leaving as allies. I think, he said carefully, that might be exactly what the galaxy needs. 3 years after the first bonding, Maya Chen stood before the Galactic Council Assembly, the largest gathering of sentient species in recorded history. At 10 years old, she appeared calm and confident despite addressing representatives from over 40 different civilizations. Shimmer, now the size of a small horse with wings that shimmered like aurora, perched beside her podium with regal dignity. The vast amphitheater on Nexus Station buzzed with tension. The assembly had been convened to address what many species considered the most important question of the millennium, whether interspecies bonding should be encouraged, regulated, or banned entirely. Honored representatives, Maya began, her voice carrying through the translation systems to reach beings of crystalline composition, energy forms, and mechanical intelligences. 3 years ago, I met my best friend when he was scared and alone. Today, I want to tell you what we've learned together. In the diplomatic viewing area, Ambassador Chen felt his heart racing. The past 3 years had transformed not just Maya and Shimmer, but the entire political landscape of the galaxy. The bond between his daughter and the Drachmarie hatchling had inspired similar connections on a dozen worlds. Some had succeeded spectacularly, creating partnerships that solved problems neither species could handle alone. Others had failed dramatically, leading to diplomatic incidents and, in 2 cases, actual warfare. Councillor Vorth Prime, representing the Hegemony Coalition, stood to address the assembly. His mechanical form was imposing 12 feet of polished chrome and circuitry designed to intimidate. Young human, you speak of friendship, but your bond has destabilized established order across the galaxy. Species that have maintained careful separation for millennia now question fundamental principles. How do you justify the chaos your connection has caused? Maya considered the question with the thoughtfulness that had become her trademark. Shimmer's scales shifted to deep blue with golden spirals, a pattern that Drachmarie scholars had identified as indicating complex cognitive processing. Councillor Vorth Prime, Maya replied, may I ask why your species created the barriers between different kinds of people in the first place? The mechanical being's optical sensors focused on her with laser precision. To maintain stability. To prevent conflicts that arise from misunderstanding. To protect each species' unique development path. But what if the barriers also prevent good things from happening? Maya asked. Before I met Shimmer, I didn't know that dragons could taste emotions, or that humans could learn to communicate through color patterns. We discovered these things together. If we had stayed separate, neither of us would have grown into who we are now. Shimmer trilled a complex melody that the translation systems rendered as musical notation rather than words. Several representatives leaned forward with interest. Few had heard direct communication from a bonded Drachmarie before. My companion points out that growth requires interaction, Maya continued, somehow understanding Shimmer's musical language perfectly. Seeds planted alone might survive, but they never become forests. Forests happen when different plants grow together, sharing nutrients and supporting each other. Elder Thyros, now serving as the Drachmarie representative to the Galactic Council, stood with ceremonial dignity. The youngling speaks truth that our species has verified through extensive research. The bonding process does not diminish individual species' characteristics, it enhances them. Shimmer has developed capabilities that exceed any known Drachmarie variant, while Maya demonstrates cognitive patterns that expand human potential. But, at what cost? Demanded Ambassador Krell, representing the Isolation Front. His species, the Zephyrians, resembled great jellyfish that floated through the air. We have reports of bonding failures resulting in permanent psychological damage. We have seen traditional cultures disrupted by young beings who reject the wisdom of their elders in favor of alien influences. We have witnessed species beginning to lose their unique identities. Maya nodded seriously. You're right that some bondings have gone wrong. Shimmer and I have visited worlds where that happened. It's always really sad. She paused, gathering her thoughts. But we learned something important from those failures. The bondings that work best happen when both beings choose the connection freely, and when they have good teachers helping them understand each other. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now serving as the chief researcher on interspecies bonding, stood in the scientific advisory section. If I may address the assembly, she said, our research has identified clear patterns in successful versus failed bonding attempts. The critical factors are consent, compatibility, proper guidance, and ongoing support. When these conditions are met, the success rate exceeds 90%. And, when they are not met, asked Councillor Vorth Prime. Psychological trauma, social disruption, and, in extreme cases, complete rejection of interspecies contact, Dr. Vasquez admitted. Which is why the Human Drachmarie Compact includes strict protocols for bonding attempts. Ancient Zalera materialized in the center of the amphitheater, her image projected from the Drachmarie homeworld. Her white and gold scales seemed to glow with inner light as she addressed the assembly with the authority of millennia. I have lived long enough to see civilizations rise and fall, she began, her voice carrying absolute conviction. I have witnessed wars that consumed entire solar systems, and peace treaties that lasted centuries. In all that time, I have never observed a force as powerful as genuine connection between different forms of consciousness. She gestured toward Maya and Shimmer. The youngling and hatchling do not represent a threat to species identity. They represent evolution in action, the development of new forms of cooperation that transcend traditional limitations. But, should such evolution be encouraged, asked Ambassador Trill of the Aquatic Collective. Should we actively promote interspecies bonding, or allow it to occur naturally? Maya raised her hand politely. May I share something Shimmer and I discovered last month? The assembly fell silent, waiting for her response. We were visiting the research station orbiting Kepler 442b, where scientists from 6 different species were trying to solve the atmospheric restoration problem. They had been working for 2 years without success because each species approached the problem using only their own methods. Maya walked closer to the center of the amphitheater, Shimmer gliding beside her with graceful ease. Shimmer suggested that maybe they needed to think like all 6 species at the same time. So we helped them create a shared workspace where each team could see how the others were approaching the problem. She activated a holographic display that showed complex atmospheric models. Within 3 days, they had developed a solution that none of them could have created alone. The atmospheric restoration is now proceeding ahead of schedule, and the planet will be habitable for multiple species within 50 years instead of 200. The point, Maya continued, isn't that bonding should be forced on anyone. It's that when different kinds of minds work together voluntarily, they can accomplish incredible things. Counselor Vorthprime's optical sensors dimmed as his processing systems analyzed the data. You propose that interspecies bonding serves as a model for broader cooperation? Exactly, Maya said with a bright smile. Shimmer and I aren't special because we're bonded. We're special because we learned how to help each other become our best selves. Any species can learn to do that with any other species, if they want to try. The debate continued for hours, with representatives arguing the merits and dangers of encouraging interspecies connections. Maya and Shimmer answered questions with patience and wisdom that impressed even their critics. Finally, Council Prime Speaker Ethan called for formal statements from each major faction. The Isolation Front maintained their position that interspecies bonding threatened cultural integrity and should be heavily regulated. The Hegemony Coalition argued for limited experimentation under strict scientific protocols. The Progressive Alliance advocated for active encouragement of bonding programs. When all positions had been presented, Council Prime Speaker Ethan addressed Maya directly. Young Ambassador, you and your companion have heard the concerns of the Assembly. What do you believe the galaxy should do regarding interspecies bonding? Maya looked at Shimmer, who hummed a soft melody that seemed to carry emotional undertones of hope and determination. She nodded as if he had spoken clearly. I think, she said carefully, that the galaxy should do what my parents taught me to do when I meet new people. Be kind, be curious, and be respectful. Don't force friendship, but don't be afraid of it either. She gestured around the amphitheater. Everyone here today is different from everyone else. Different bodies, different minds, different ways of understanding the universe. But we're all here together, talking about the same problem, trying to find the same answers. That's already bonding, in a way. Shimmer spread his wings wide and sang a complex harmony that the translation systems rendered as pure emotion, hope, joy, determination, and something that could only be described as love for the diverse community gathered in the chamber. Shimmer wants me to tell you the difference is beautiful, Maya concluded. Not scary, not threatening, but beautiful. The galaxy is huge and amazing because it's full of so many different kinds of life. Bonding doesn't erase those differences, it helps us appreciate them even more. The vote, when it came, was closer than anyone had expected. The Assembly agreed to establish the Interspecies Connection Protocol, a framework that would allow voluntary bonding attempts between compatible species while providing safeguards against coercion and support for those who chose traditional separation. Maya and Shimmer were designated as Galactic Ambassadors for Interspecies Understanding, a position created specifically for their unique abilities and perspective. As the assembly dispersed, representatives from dozens of species approached Maya and Shimmer with requests for visits to their worlds. Some wanted to explore bonding possibilities for their own people. Others simply wanted to learn from the remarkable friendship that had changed galactic politics. Ambassador Chen found his daughter as she was saying goodbye to a delegation of crystalline beings who had invited her to help establish the first cross-species academy in their sector. How do you feel about all this responsibility? He asked. Maya considered the question while Shimmer performed lazy loops in the station's high-ceilinged corridors. It's not really responsibility, Daddy. It's just being friends with people and helping them be friends with each other. That's what friends do. Dr. Vasquez joined them, carrying reports from the latest bonding research centers. Maya, Shimmer, you might want to see this. We've had successful bonding attempts between 8 different species pairs in the past month. Each one was inspired by your example. Maya's face lit up with genuine joy. Really? Are they happy? According to all our measurements, yes. They're developing the same enhanced cognitive and empathic abilities you and Shimmer demonstrate. More importantly, they're helping their communities solve problems that seemed impossible before. Ancient Zalera's hologram materialized beside them. The youngling and hatchling have become what we hoped, catalysts for transformation. But this is only the beginning. What do you mean? Maya asked. The bonds you inspire today will create the first generation of truly galactic citizens, beings who understand that consciousness itself seeks connection across all barriers. In time, they will raise younglings who see cooperation across species lines as natural and normal. Shimmer landed on Maya's shoulder and jerked a question that she translated automatically. Shimmer wants to know if we'll get to meet some of these new bonded pairs. Would you like that? Dr. Vasquez asked. Maya looked around at the diverse gathering of beings who had come to witness history in the making. Crystalline entities shared space with energy beings, mechanical consciousnesses debated with organic hive minds, and aquatic species floated alongside aerial forms in specially designed environmental suits. I'd love that, she said simply. The more friends we have, the more interesting the universe becomes. As the great station rotated through space, carrying representatives back to their home worlds, a new chapter in galactic history was beginning. Maya-chan and Shimmer had shown that the barriers between species were not walls to be maintained, but bridges waiting to be built. The universe, vast and full of wonders, seemed a little smaller and a lot friendlier than it had been just one day before.